Hello everyone, Marcello here, Jackson Clarion-Ledger here at Auburn Arena in Auburn, about to head back to the hotel. But bad loss for Mississippi State, third straight, 65-55 here in Auburn. Third straight, fourth straight actually in Auburn, and I think this is probably the worst loss of the three. Losing the overtime to Georgia and at LSU. Then to follow it up with a loss at Auburn, which entered the game with only 3 SEC wins. And the way State lost it, they got down big in the first half after building a big lead themselves, 12-4, and just couldn't fight back. They got back within 3 late in the second half, and then DeBoss misses a three-pointer, DeVille Smith misses a layup, then you have some turnovers, and then Rob Chubb over here gets a monstrous offensive rebound off a Kenny Gabriel three-pointer miss. Gabriel cuts to the lane, Chubb finds him, and he gets a very hard layup, very hard to make, and he makes it, gets fouled, makes the free throw, and that was the end of the game in my eyes. They're late. State never got any closer after that. Just a game that State had no rhythm. They had to play without Renardo Sidney, as most of you know. Renardo Sidney had back spasms, according to the team spokesman. Stansbury said that it was pretty much just Sidney said he couldn't go, so he didn't play. I think they did miss Sidney a little bit. As much as they give up on defense at times with Sidney, especially late in games, they could have used him tonight, because Arnett Moultrie, as good as he is, getting putbacks and everything, he's not a true post player and catch the ball with his back to the basket, make a move and get a layup or a hook shot. Sidney is built for that. He could have had a few points in there and helped them out and help open things up. But I think the difference is, Rick Stansbury hit on this, there's a lot of things you can cut up with this game, but State just couldn't hit shots. They were 5 for 22 beyond the arc. 2 of those 5 shots were made by Arnett Moultrie, who entered the game with only made 4 all season. So that kind of tells you what kind of night it was. Rodney Hood really struggled. 1 for 8 beyond the arc. He had several open looks, in several big moments. Couldn't hit them. They just rimmed out or they clanked. Just very uncharacteristic of him. Arnett finished with 16 points, 11 rebounds. That's his 15th double-double. But looking ahead, let's talk about what's ahead. State, I want to say, is on the bubble. Maybe they were written on the bubble, certainly maybe, with the NCAA Tournament Selection Committee. But this next week might be make or break. They have to host #1 Kentucky at Humphrey Coliseum Tuesday night at 8 o'clock. Then they have to go on the road Saturday to Alabama. An Alabama team that you really don't know what to expect from them night in, night out, with players being suspended. Tony Mitchell's not playing, or Jermichael Green's not playing. But Alabama has been able to win some games without them, and that's always a tough place to play for Mississippi State. If State's losing streak reaches 5 games, with a loss to Kentucky and a loss to Alabama, they're definitely on the bubble, if not scratching and clawing their way to try and maybe get a 12 seed. That's just the way it is. I know the bubble's weak this year, and I'm sure I'll talk plenty more with national experts about this next week, especially if State loses, but they could not afford to lose another game to a team that only won 3 SEC games. I know it was on the road, and Rick Stansbury talked a lot about them being the underdog in these road games, and he's been catching a lot of flack of it from fans about that. And you know, we followed up questions with them after the game, asking, you know, you do realize that, I know you don't pay attention to it, and as you should, but you were favored going into this game by the people who make money doing that in Vegas. And he said, no, you're underdog no matter where you go on the road, that a lot of teams have a hard time winning on the road. Well, State's definitely having a hard time to win on the road, but teams that make the NCAA tournament are able to win a couple of games on the road. State's got 2 wins on the road. 1 SEC play at Vanderbilt, which is a great game for them. It's a great resume builder. And then 1 at Detroit. But they're 1-5 in the SEC, and that's not very. It doesn't look great on the resume. If State closes out the season, you know, or not closes out the season, but has a 5-game losing streak going into the final week of the year, with games at South Carolina and at home against Arkansas, 2 teams whose RPI aren't that great, it's going to hurt the Bulldogs, and they're going to have to win some games in the SEC tournament. It's going to come down to Selection Sunday for them, which is unfortunate if you're a Mississippi State fan, because coming into last week, right before that Georgia game, you thought, man, this schedule here, State could win, reel off some wins here, and set themselves up for a monstrous top 15 matchup against Kentucky. Not going to happen. State's not going to be ranked. They were 23rd in the AP, coaches poll entering this game, but they're not going to be after 3 straight losses. Just a big-time loss. And I think DeBoss, who's kind of beside himself after the game, didn't really want to talk, but I think he summed it up best. I asked him, Is your back against the wall? Is this crunch time? And he says, it's been crunch time. I think he realizes that they have let some opportunities slip because nothing is guaranteed. And losing 3 straight to teams like Georgia, LSU, and Auburn, which are arguably 3 of the worst 4 teams in the bottom half of the SEC on paper and from what you hear around the conference. Not a good way to start it off the last 2 weeks of the season. State falls to 19-8, 6-6 in the SEC. They need wins. They need wins. But they have opportunities coming up. Number 1 Kentucky, obviously, in Humphrey Coliseum. We'll be there. We'll follow up on this game in the Clarion-Ledger Sunday and also on the blog. Much more to come. Thanks for joining me here at Auburn. Again, Mississippi State a loser, 65-55 to the Tigers.